Well, hey everybody, welcome to what is this, day 9 of Video a Day Debruary. It's already the ninth day, rolling on through the month. Today's guest is Tim Grimes, and he's here to help you relax into abundance. Tim's a spiritual counselor, and he specializes in helping people relax and is the best-selling author of stress management books like The Joy of Not Thinking, which we're going to be talking about tonight, Relax More, Try Less, and The Law of Attraction Simplified. He's also the host of his own podcast called The Law of Attraction Explored. So help me welcome Tim to Debruary 2022. What's up, Tim?
Hey Deb, how are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for
You
having
know,
me.
I'm very happy to have you here. One thing that really caught my attention is when you were talking about your pitch to be on February is uh, that people overthink. And like I was explaining to you, that's not something that you commonly hear. We don't really get told that we're overthinking. So, what's the difference between thinking about something, as you should, and then overthinking? What does that even mean?
Well, generally speaking, and it's good to speak in generalities when it comes to this stuff because it's too convoluted otherwise if you don't go general with it. Thinking normally is when you feel okay. Overthinking is when you feel bad.
Ah, that cuts it down to the chase.
It's what we try to do. Cut it down to the chase.
So you define yourself as a and helping people relax and being a stress, writing stress management books. How has that been for you? What kind of things have you heard since this COVID stuff's been going on?
I mean, for me, what I noticed at the beginning of the pandemic, I think, is that people were in denial.
Mm,
And then you had frontline healthcare workers who were very aware of the severity of what was happening and basically just the trauma. And then you had, again, to speak generally, I would say the majority of other people in denial of the significance of what was happening and how historical it was. Um, I was very aware of it, quite honestly, from pretty early on. And so this is just on an individual basis, a cultural trauma, I would say. And it's something that a lot of people are still denying. And people are going to continue to deny the severity of it. Unfortunately, it seems like for a long time. But in regards to my work, it just makes it more obvious that it's worthwhile to look at yourself and how you respond to things and how you think in order to heal some of these wounds. And if you do that, I think you're more able to be aware of kind of what's going on around you and help others around you as well. But yeah, I mean, what I've noticed is from a stress management viewpoint and speaking to people is a denial of the severity of a historical event that people don't want to pretend is not historical.
is that their way of managing the stress, maybe?
I
Because
think
they
so.
think they can't really handle it and feel like if they acknowledge that it's real, they'll just like totally lose it or something.
I think a lot of it is a coping mechanism. Yeah, uh, there's a lot to unpack. Obviously, right? I mean, and
Right.
I don't want to spend too much time speaking about the pandemic unless you want to, in which
No,
case
no,
it's
I was just
fine.
relating it
Uh,
to the ability for people to, how are they managing that kind of stress,
right.
like
I mean,
to get it on the
again,
right scale.
I, I noticed like the first 6 to 9 months of the pandemic, I thought I would have people coming to me who wanted to talk about it, and virtually nobody did.
Really?
Shocked. Yeah, that's what I mean in terms of denial.
Right.
And people were coming speaking about other stuff, but it was almost like, oh, in regards to what's happening, like in regards to what's happening, like this is like, you know, like the flu crisis, the flu pandemic of like 1918, 1919 to 1921. That's like what's happening. It's like right now it's happening again. Like this is historical. This isn't like, something that you can even compare to anything else.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. And it to cut it back to like overthinking and thinking normally. and coping mechanisms we have, I think that people are reluctant to observe their thinking, generally speaking. So when you feel good, your thinking is like normal in the sense where you feel kind of in a flow while you're doing your day-to-day life. But a lot of the time, for almost all of us, we get overwhelmed and we start to worry about stuff, and that's overthinking. And that's when our thoughts are convoluted and we're trying to come up with solutions, but like our ego or our protective mechanism is kind of getting in the way and we're overwhelmed. So becoming more aware of that is very beneficial, and I think kind of like one of the easiest ways to simplify the stress in your life is just to become more aware of when you are overthinking, and then figuring out ways to work for you to minimize it to the best of your ability.
So how do you clue people in that that's what's going on? Because, if this is the way that you've always done things and you haven't had a Tim in your life to kind of point out that, this is not the right way to do things, how do you, kind of arrest that? Is there are like some steps to take, some self-talk that you should do, questions you should ask yourself?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's interesting you say self-talk. That's a great way to become aware of this, is if you kind of are like, if you ask yourself honestly, like, how do I feel right now? And you start talking out loud to yourself. If you speak out loud to yourself openly, you'll notice there's this inner voice there too. That inner voice is the overthinking if you don't feel good. You know what I'm saying? So if you're like, if I'm like, Tim, why the hell do I feel this way? I feel so upset. There's something wrong with me. What's going on? And I keep on talking, talk it out loud. There's an inner shift as well. So to be a radical way to become aware of this is any type of unusual physical action. That can be speaking out loud to yourself, but that could also be like jumping up and down and making silly noises, because what that does is that gets you out of your normal thinking patterns or overthinking patterns. So the trick to become aware of this stuff is to do something physically that you don't usually do. If you do that, you realize how in your head you are, because we're all in our head more than we think. And I would argue, again, back to the coping mechanism thing, most of us do know this. Some part of us knows how in our head we are. It's just we don't want to acknowledge it.
Right. Because if you acknowledge it, then you'll have to do something about it.
Yes. And
Let's
I mean,
not do that.
but why wouldn't you do that? I mean, the reason why usually is because we're scared and we think that no one else does this and we're crazy or something like that. But and I get that, right? But guess what? That fear is okay, because you can work with that. Fear is telling you something and you can work with it.
But Tim,
Well,
don't sometimes when people start doing this kind of stuff, this they're focusing on stuff. They're thinking about, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And it's stuff that, from the outside, it's not even based on any kind of reality. They're really reaching, just trying to find some reason why there's going to be a disaster. They're going to fail. It's going to, what, something bad is going to happen. And I don't know, when people around me and they do, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. So it's like they just get themselves worked up in a state about possible maybes and coulda, wouldas instead of dealing with what is.
well, I think it goes back to what you were saying, where do they want to open up that can of worms? Do they want to look at that fear? A lot of people don't. That's okay. I mean, I spent a lot of time when I was younger trying to get people more aware of this stuff in like my friends, family, trying to work with them on this stuff. And I came to the realization people don't care a lot. I mean, it's not that they don't care, and they clearly care about me and they care about themselves, but it's too out of their comfort zone in some way, and people want that level of comfort, and
Right.
you can bring them to the water, but you can't make them drink it. If you, it's I show really obvious ways of doing this, right? Like, again, if you jump up and down and are making
So
funny noises, physical
physical movement.
movement, right?
Okay.
You're gonna, and I've done this with like family members and friends who are not into this stuff, and they see. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, wait, that's just my thinking that's causing me to feel that way. It has nothing to do with an actual real event, like you just said. It's all in my head. And if I jump up and down or blast loud music and dance around in my room, I realize it's all in my head. And wow, that's a realization. But guess what? A lot of people have that realization and they go back to living their life and thinking their fictional hellscape thoughts and don't change.
Yeah, that's just miserable. Well, tell me about, you
It's
talked
not
about,
miserable. I mean, it's miserable in the sense that they allow themselves to do it, but it's also, it's a choice. And I don't say that callously. I mean, it's like you can keep on working with people, but you can't make them drink the water. If they're by the river and they don't drink the water, you can't do anything.
right. Yeah, just what I meant is, you've seen them um, working themselves into a state of being unhappy, and miserable, anxious, stressed over things that aren't really happening, just projections of possible maybes. And that's the part that, just makes me feel a little crazy. I that's why you do what you do and I do what I do.
Yeah, of
We're
course. And I
different.
mean, it's like, but as you know, it's like most people don't want therapy or counseling. They want a shoulder to cry on, somebody to complain to. But then it's like, all right, well, we can do this, and this not only might this help, I feel very confident that this will help. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I'll think about it. It's all of a
I
sudden,
think sometimes, and I don't know about in your work, but what I found is that sometimes, like if you point out something that they would resolve the problem, they don't really want it because then they feel like, okay, well, if I don't have this problem to complain about, what am I going to do? I've always felt like that maybe part of it because they were so invested in this thing that they always wanted to talk about and complain about and cry on everyone's shoulder about. But if that problem is eradicated, then what? They don't have any more
yeah,
excuse to be unhappy. So they're going to have to take that step of being responsible for themselves and being, responsible for their happiness. They can't blame it on something else or someone else. I don't know. It's just a vague feeling I had. I'm not, I don't do any counseling like that, but it's just a feeling I had at the way that they, seem so invested in keeping that problem going, keeping that alive.
yeah. I think that something that comes up is that there's the sentiment that if this story goes, as stressful as the story might be, if it goes like I shrivel up into a raisin or something like that, and like my life's over. Well, in reality, it's like a pressure cooker or something like that, and you've got so much steam or whatever in there, but you take the lid off, and there's a massive amount of relief that they would experience if they actually let the story go, if they actually let it drop. But they don't know that because it's not it hasn't been explained to them, or they haven't been able to process that that's what would happen. They just assume that without the story, like you say, that they I don't know, they need the story. And so
Yeah,
I think you have to make it really clear that when the story goes, that's the best thing possible.
I see. Give them some reassurance. I got you.
Yeah, and even really, I would argue that's really overthinking in general, is we don't realize, unless we get into this stuff and experiment with it a lot of the time, that like when the overthinking goes, we feel great, we feel good. I always say, like, when your fear goes, like, what happens when your fear goes? Do you disappear? Of course not. No, you just feel relieved and okay or good. And that isn't that what you would think people want. So conveying that, whether it's through physical movement or action, or just explaining it calmly, or explaining it any way you can. I mean, there's so many different counseling and therapeutic ways to explain this and explore this. the way I explain it is usually pretty drastic, more physical based than a lot of
Yeah.
people. But it's just conveying that it's okay if the overthinking, if the story goes, you're not going to die. You're going to feel better. And don't you want to feel better? Because listen, people do want to feel better. On a conscious level, people want to feel better. The problem is, like, subconsciously or unconsciously, there's all these negative beliefs that are overriding that want. It's saying, I want to feel better, but I can't because this is holding me back and it's stronger. So, yeah.
I wanted you to share with the viewers how you arrived at this level of understanding with the near-death experience that you had as a teenager.
Yeah. I mean, for me, and I talk about this in The Joy of Not Thinking at the beginning of that book, I was always into, kind of, even when I was like a teenager, into spirituality and exploring what my mind meant and what it meant to be thinking, I guess you could say. But what occurred for me is that I had this very traumatic experience when I was on vacation with my family, where I just kind of like lost my mind. I basically had like a mental breakdown. I was just scared of everything. I was scared of dying. That was the main thing. If you really wanted to analyze it in retrospect, like, I was scared of death. What was going to happen? I was going to die. We're all going to die. All life is suffering. There's no way out. We're trapped. And so I was completely overwhelmed. I just felt physically like just wanted to hide in a hole, basically. And I was in this state, and I was on a beach with my family away from them. And I just, all of a sudden, something happened, and like all the overthinking went away. And really all the thinking, what I considered up to that point thought, period, dropped away. And I thought I died, basically, or I wasn't sure if I was dead or alive. It's just total, like, clarity, in the sense of like everything just cleared out all of a sudden.
Wow.
And the main thing that I realized immediately was that everything's fine. And not everything is fine now. Everything's fine always. Like, everything's fine. Everything's good. And the reason that we think things are not good is what I just said. We think they're not good. We superimpose this story onto life that's not real, that is suffering. And that's very, like, it sounds like Buddhist or whatever. I mean, that's what I would argue most great religions or spirituality is discussing, really, is that we put suffering onto our life. We create it. I mean, there's physical pain. There's obviously traumatic stuff that people can go through. That goes without saying. But mentally, we are in our head, and we don't know the degree that we're in our head. And the less in your head you get, generally speaking, the better you're going to feel. So don't think is what I always come back to telling people. And it can be wonderful to think if you feel good, if you feel rational, and you're getting from point A to B to C to D, and everything's lining up during your day. But we get overwhelmed by our thoughts so easily, and we can always tell that just because we don't feel good. So it's like checking in with yourself and realizing we don't feel good. Oh, maybe it's because of how I'm thinking, or how I'm letting my mind go. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about manifesting love,
Mm-hmm.
because we're close to Valentine's Day, and a lot of people are single, and a lot of singles have their thoughts about Valentine's Day, where they're feeling unloved and uncared for and lonely and all these things that they tell themselves they are. Um, and I just wanted to get some boosting words and see what you had to say about that.
Yeah. Well, first I would say, in the best way possible, I would say, screw Valentine's Day, because the holiday symbolically means something, I guess, to a lot of people, but
Yeah.
it's full of lack and suffering for a lot of people for the reason you just said. But in all seriousness, I mean, one thing, so, I'm really into this thinking, not thinking stuff, but I'm also really into the law of attracting and manifesting because it makes sense practically. Like manifesting, in my opinion, is good thinking. When you feel good and your thinking is helping you along, practically improve your life. So manifesting love, a lot of it, in my opinion, if not all of it, is manifesting self-love.
Ooh, tell it.
So it's very hard to manifest an ideal partner if you don't mirror that on yourself. And that is the issue for most people who are looking, particularly are looking for love. They're looking in all the wrong places. And the reason that's the case is because they're not looking within. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be on like a dating app or going out or whatever. You can do those practical based things if you want. But if you're a self-loving person, if you really learn to love yourself more and more, and it's a practice, right? It's not something
Yeah.
that's like, you don't just turn it on, right? It's a continual practice for all of us. The more
Continue
you,
developing. Right.
yes, if you focus on that development and you love yourself and you set the intention that you want your love to be mirrored in the external world with a partner, that partner's probably going to show up. And if they don't, you're still going to have so much self-love and people around you who notice that you're radiating that self-love and that compassion towards other people, that if you don't happen to have a partner, you'll feel better about that too. But chances are, over time, your love for yourself and your genuine attention to share that love with another person is going to be picked up on, or attracted to you, magnetized to you,
Right.
if you want to use law of attraction terms. But it's a process. It's not like about a day during the year or a 30-day thing or a whatever. Like, when you do, for instance, Debruary is about, you have a certain amount of time to implement, to talk about principles that you can then implement for the rest of the year, the rest of your life. And it's like, that's what all this stuff is about. It's, if you are gentle with yourself and aren't trying to meet somebody by Valentine's Day or by the end of the month or by the end of March or whatever, but give yourself a longer time span of 6 months, a year, you're going to see substantial change if you continue to work on that over 6 months or a year. I mean, that's it. It's inner work. Gentle, gentle, gentle. And you run up against stuff while you do it all the time. And that's the work. Oh, wow, I don't feel as good about myself as I thought I did. Can I sit with this and learn to love myself in this way still, even though these feelings of inadequacy or of not being deserving are coming up? Can I learn to work through this?
I
That's the
think
law
those
of
are good
attraction.
points.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Those are good
that's
points because I think, in a lot of the situations, what I run into with women is they start off really well, but somehow their boundaries start to crumble. They Man, they just go up in smoke. And a lot of it is, that inner feeling like they start doing that talking that you're talking about, giving themselves negative messages. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I shouldn't do that. And, well, I need to be more flexible. Or, I'm being too harsh. And do I have the right to do that? And, these kind of conversations they start having with themselves.
yes,
And it's pretty awful. I think it's pretty sad.
it is. It is. I mean, and that's really what I mean. It's the self work is so it's huge, and there's so many good resources in terms of learning how to work with yourself in different ways. And it's so important, I think, and it really, you do become magnetic towards people you want in your life if you continue to work on it, and you also kind of are like, deflect people you don't want or potential partners who are not worthy of you if you work on yourself, because you're not open to that kind of like negative energy. You just pick up on it
Hmm.
quickly. Um, So yeah,
So Tim, if someone like say, I mean, some people that come here are, very religious or very spiritual, and then there's people who aren't on that path. Does one have to be a follower of spirituality or religion in order to utilize these techniques?
of course not. No, not. A lot of time we use like religious or spiritual language because it articulates something that's hard to even put into words, right? But we can look at this from just plain old self-development, positive psychology, um, from that kind of an angle. Um, I like to do that. I mean, my podcast is about the law of attraction, and a few of my favorite teachers intentionally use no religious or spiritual language at all. Emile Coué, who's probably my favorite law of attraction teacher, he was a French guy from like 100 years ago. He said this has nothing to do with religion.
Oh, good.
This is
Okay.
just about psychology. This is just about your imagination and having your imagination basically work for you as opposed to against you. In other words, thinking properly as opposed to overthinking negatively. So it doesn't have to have anything to do with religion at all. Another person I would quickly mention in a famous book, his name is Maxwell Maltz. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. It's not spiritual at all. It's about self-image, and it's about how you can change your self-image. And what's interesting about that book is the writer was a doctor and he was a plastic surgeon, and he noticed that people would get plastic surgery, and usually that would fix them mentally as well. Um, but it wasn't that the surgery, for instance, made them more attractive to another person. It's because it made them more attractive to themselves that they then became more attractive to other people. Do you
Oh,
follow me?
interesting. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, what's great about a lot of these ideas, including like this not thinking stuff. I mean, you don't have to get spirituality involved with it at all. I consider myself a spiritual person, but it doesn't matter whatsoever. It can just be practical.
Okay. That's important because I think, I don't know. We have people here from all over the world, and I try to generally avoid, specific religious associations because they have everything. They come from everywhere. But that's good to know. I'm going to post. Here's the link, ladies and gents. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment to Tim, there's the link right there. Just click it. Um, you will be on audio only. You will be on audio only, or you can type your question into the chat and I'll put it across the screen for him. Here's one that someone typed, Tim. What type of therapy or counseling is needed for this kind of advancement?
Um, Stress management, really. The ability to be open to to noticing your stress levels and to manage your stress levels better, to feel more effective. Um, we were just talking about this. I used to just call myself a stress management or alternative stress management counselor. I now say spiritual counselor because I do law of attraction stuff and I like using that language. So, we could throw that in there, but it's very, when we say spirituality in this regard, it works alongside most other religions that one might be. Usually, if you're open to to these ideas and you're not dogmatic about your religious beliefs, the spiritual side can be interesting too. But this is mainly about stress management counseling, learning how to feel more relaxed.
Okay. You got that, Brooklyn? That's your answer. Anyone got a question for Tim? We only try to keep them here for 30 to 45 minutes. Don't ask people to give up their entire life for Debruary. You give me some compliments, though. Just
Oh,
say
thank you.
this is good.
Oh, this is
And
good. Oh, good. It's okay if
yeah,
it's bad too.
and this is a great topic. So yeah. I knew it would be. I knew, it would be something that they would like. So what suggestion do you have to someone who struggles with trying to, this surrendering and letting go? I always felt the people that really hold on like that is either, like you pointed out earlier, fear, or they have this strong need to control. They want to control everybody and everything.
Mm.
And to me, that is just exhausting. I don't personally don't want to control anything, but I know, that seems to be a quest for a lot of people. They want to maintain control over you, themselves, and everybody else. But it's just really, how do you let go? What kind of message do you give yourself, or what do you say to stop trying to control and dictate everything?
Well, I'll definitely answer that, but I'll start by saying that some people, like you mentioned, that they like that, and the problem is eventually you're going to lose control, you know.
Yeah.
But some people do like that. They're very type A, very like they. That's their energy. So I mean, if that's your energy, that's your energy. It's okay. I mean, if it works for you and you feel good while you're kind of in control, at least of your own life, if you're not manipulating people, but if you're just like a very dynamic leader, type A personality, so be it. But letting go, I actually just spoke about this on my podcast. If you go to Law of Attraction Explored, the most recent episode is called "Letting Go Explained."
Oh,
It's about a 15-minute episode, so I would recommend listening to that. But to to give a summation of letting go that I think a lot of people don't understand, because letting go is a phrase that's just used way too much. I love that phrase, but it's just no one knows what the heck it even means anymore because it's used so
right.
often. Um, Letting go, this is what confuses a lot of people. To let go of a feeling like fear or to let go of negative emotions. It's not like mentally, usually you can just say, all right, I'm letting go of this fear and it's going to go. That can happen, but usually the fear is still going to be there because there's going to be all this subconscious stuff still coming up, this overthinking that you don't want to be there, but that's there anyway. To let go of feelings like fear, you you stop paying attention to the thoughts that are associated with the feeling, and you just start focusing on the feeling that's there. And it's going to be very uncomfortable, perhaps. Maybe you feel very tight in your chest. Maybe your stomach gets queasy. Maybe your heart starts to race. And you physically give in to the feeling. You give into the feeling of discomfort. You lean into it, if anything. You lean into this discomfort. And your thoughts are maybe all over the place and you don't pay attention to them. You just lean into this feeling. And what happens is the feeling starts to dissipate. It can't remain. After like 5 or 10 minutes of doing this, you'll notice your body and that discomfort shifting. And if you do it for like 15, 20, 25 minutes, it might totally shift. And you don't have to necessarily do this all at one time, but if you keep on doing that, these feelings that seem so overwhelming, like fear, you notice they're just bodily sensations and they're going to pass. And
Wow.
and that's letting go, like in my opinion, much more than what you hear about. David Hawkins wrote a book called Letting Go. That's very good if people want to read a book about letting go that talks about that, specifically chapter 2 of that book.
Okay, we have a question for you here. She wants to know about lack of financial abundance.
Yeah.
How
Yep.
to combat that with the pandemic going on and not having work.
One thing that's wonderful about a lot of this manifesting advice, if you get into it, is you can learn to look at money differently. And if you want to contact me, you can go to my website or email me at info@radicalcounselor.com. I can give you some extremely mind-blowing advice about dealing with finances mentally differently. But to give a short answer for us right now, I would say that this is going to sound kind of cliche, but money is energy, okay? In the sense that how you think about money, especially like those subconscious kind of nagging thoughts, like I don't have enough. How am I going to pay rent? How am I going to pay my car loan? How am I going to pay it? That's the kind of stuff that is stopping money from coming to you. And, and
Ooh.
if you think, this is going to work out, money's always coming my way. I've always made it work before. More and more things are opening up to me. If you get more and more into that type of mindset, that kind of energy, more money is going to start coming to you. And again, if you contact me, I can give you a bunch of resources. There's a ton of good resources on financial abundance, through the law of attraction. The issue is applying it. Okay. In the same way I just talked about letting go in a way that probably most people have never heard before. It's the same way with financial abundance. Like the cliche law of attraction, write out whatever 20 affirmations and you're going to be a millionaire by next week it's not realistic. But there is a lot of unbelievable psychological stuff you can do to improve your abundance mentality. So yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
love.
great. Okay, I'll fly you an email
Mhm.
so I can, take a look at some of that. Let's
Yeah.
hear the next question. What if you have trouble imagining the life you want to manifest? It's like there's some sort of block, like the vision is in a language that I don't speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great question. Then don't imagine it. You don't have to imagine it. Do you want to feel good or bad? I mean, that's it, in the sense that you don't have to plan a vivid future. All you have to do, in my opinion, I'm speaking again generally, this is not like a specific answer, but
Right.
you can ask yourself every day or even twice a day. But let's say you do it every morning and every evening, every time, once in the morning, once at night, or maybe once in the middle of the day, whatever. Ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want? And just sit with that something might come up right away. And it might take a minute for something to come up, but something should come up, and take note of that. I would actually write it down. But if you don't have to write it down if you don't want to, but just ask yourself, what do I want? And then if it might be like, I want better health, or I want a loving relationship, or I want a better job. Note that. You don't have to imagine anything. How does that feel? Does that feel good? And the follow-up question is, why do you want it? Why do you want that new job? Is it because it would pay you more money? Is it because it would make you feel more fulfilled? Is it because it would make you be closer to family? You can ask, why? Why do I want it? Imagination is natural, and you don't have to imagine a specific thing. Like if I say apple, you can't help but imagine an apple. You don't have to be imagining, oh, what's apple, green, red? You've just imagined an apple. It's done.
Right.
Don't overcomplicate it. And that's what we do. I'm saying this because so many people do this. Like, we overcomplicate it. If you're in tune with what you want, with your desires, that's all the imagination you need to do. And you can constantly note what you want and feel into it. It's about the feeling. The
I think
feeling
that's going to
is
be hard for them.
going to be hard for what?
The people who are used to, hanging on to things and worrying and all of that. It's, I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying that, there's going to be some challenges with it. I can see them sending you emails.
Sure. No, please do. Send me an email. Yeah. I mean, send me an email. Um, yeah. I mean, listen, most of what I'm talking about, going back to the thinking and overthinking thing, life gets better if we learn to relax more. And the irony is, most of us have trouble learning to relax.
Yeah.
And this
We
goes
feel
for
like we're supposed to be doing something every second or we're not
exactly,
productive.
exactly. And that's the work. That's it. Like, so most manifestation advice I give just deals really with learning to relax more. Because in my experience, if you learn to relax more and lean into what you want, be in touch with what you want, and feel relaxed about it coming to you, hopefully. And if it doesn't come, it doesn't come, but I'm going to learn to relax as best I can, regardless. If you do that, your life gets better. But listen, worrying is a issue for so many people, most people. And I'm not saying it's the easiest thing to solve. It's an issue that is worth solving. But it's not like, again, it's not something you're gonna fix in a week, probably. It's something that it's a lifelong practice, and it's a joyful practice because you get better at it. You get better at relaxing and feeling relaxed. I'm thinking of a book, Deb, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah,
Sounds fascinating, though.
Dale Carnegie, the guy who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Mm-hmm.
The book is How to Stop
Got a
Worrying.
zillion other books, but
Yeah, right, exactly. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. That's a really good summation. That title, that's what it's about, right? It's like we're not aware of how much worrying is destroying our life. Okay, like I want to use a strong word there, like destroying our life, like how self-destructive our behavior is towards ourselves, to our own well-being. And we can become more aware of that, and then we will feel better.
Well, I'm going to give you, time. You did say it, and I do believe we have it in the show page, but it's better to have it on the video too, to tell people where they can reach out to you, to see your websites and purchase your books, and then any closing comments that you want to make on the subject to kind of tie things together.
Sure. Well, yeah. Thank you for having me, Deb. First of all, this has been
No,
fun.
this has been fabulous.
Yeah, and it's always great to talk to live wires like yourself. So my books are all on Amazon. I've got a lot of books because I've also, besides writing books, I've also edited and curated some classic, like very, 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 very good Law of Attraction books that are, have my name on as editor. So if you go to Amazon, search Tim Grimes, you'll find me. My website is just radicalcounselor.com, radicalcounselor.com. And my podcast is called Law of Attraction Explored. And that podcast, if you're interested in manifesting stuff or Law of Attraction stuff, and you've liked what I've talked about tonight, it's worth listening to my podcast, because I talk about a lot of these concepts like financial abundance or letting go or, manifesting love. I talk about this stuff, but in a way that is much more, I don't know, down to earth, I guess you would say. However you want to describe what we were talking about tonight, like in that manner, compared to, we're not talking about crystals and astral realms,
Right.
And, raising your consciousness and, whatever. I'm not lighting any candles, So yeah, radicalcounselor.com has connections with all the other stuff. If you want to ask me a question directly, you can email info@radicalcounselor.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tim. I think just looking at the responses, they really enjoyed having you here and listening to what you have to say. So they'll probably be over on your podcast before too long.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Again, it was a pleasure to chat, Deb, and I'm glad that people got to enjoy it live.
Yes, live is good. I'm glad
Live
you
is
picked
good.
live date.
Oh,
Thanks,
yeah.
Tim. Talk to you
Thank
later.
you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
So everybody, that was Tim Grimes, and we'll have all the links and stuff. I think the link to his website's already in the show description, but add the email and the other stuff. He said the links to some books on Amazon and things like that. But you guys asked some good questions, and I hope that you understand where he's coming from. It's not, he's trying to point out to you how useless and energy sucking and spiritually depleting it is to sit around worrying all the time. I mean, this is my own personal philosophy on it. I don't worry about anything. If there's a problem arises, I either roll my sleeves up and get busy making whatever solution that I perceive is the best one happen, or I just let it go because it's out of my control. it's like that prayer, that prayer. It says, God grant me the wisdom to know, about the things I can change and the wisdom to know the difference. It's kind of along those lines. If I can impact change, I get busy making it happen because I don't want this on my plate. I don't want to be thinking about this tomorrow. I want this off my desk. But if it's something I really, I've thought about it from every angle. I'm like, all possible solutions. I'm not worrying. I'm looking at what I can do to fix it or make it go away. So I'm not worrying about it. I'm looking at solutions to it. And then I either pick one or I resolve the fact that nothing that I can do is going to really make that happen. So I just let it go. But that's why I'm always laughing and joking and being at peace and not tripping. You see? So I would like you guys to, just some of that to rub off on you too. So hopefully Tim explained it to you in a way that makes sense, and then you'll, be able to adopt some of those attitudes into your own life and live a little bit more stress free. Okay. So we'll be back tomorrow. Of course, I say this every day. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow because this is going to go on for the rest of the month. Um, who's the speaker tomorrow? I think it's just Giselle. Giselle Taraba is on tomorrow. And then the speaker that we were going to have the other night when I did the live show, she'll be on Sunday instead. So check that out. I posted a new updated calendar for week 2. It's on the community wall, so you'll see all the, all the switcheroos that happened because guests had to move around. But I think all in all, Debruary is going off pretty well. A few little hiccups here and there, but in general, the guests are great, and your responses to them have been wonderful. So please hit that like button, share any video that you like. It doesn't have to be this one, and then become a subscriber to the channel if you're not already. And we will be back tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. The show starts at 6 p.m. Pacific time. That's 9 if you're on the East Coast, so you might want to take a nap. But the shows aren't that long, 30, 45 minutes is what we usually do during Debruary. So you guys, thanks for coming, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.